I haven't done that. I haven't turned on the audio yet. Okay. I'm just gonna work. Hey. We're filming it.
Let's sew napkins. These aren't perfect, but I think you'll agree they're pretty nice. Because I did pre-wash before I ironed my fabric, they're going to wash up nice and square. That's why I had to iron the fabric. I'm old school when it comes to fabric. One of my pet peeves is when you buy something and it's beautiful at first and you wash it once and it's never the same, it's never nice again. And so these will be 8 placemats for my best friend, who I will still make them for people, for special orders, for people that are in my life, whether they're customers or friends. And she picked out these fabrics when she was here visiting with her husband a few weeks ago. And she's got fiesta wear, and they thought that they would like placemats and napkins made out of this. And so we're going to cut those out, and then I'll make 2 tutorials, one for each item. I cut these 20 by 20, so you can't make 4 out of a yard. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to cut some little strips of fabric to make the little loop, because these napkins that I make button with a little loop sewn into the corner, and the corners are mitered corners, and it makes a pretty smart little napkin. We're going to have 2 napkins of each color. I don't know whether I'll match the loops or make them coordinate, but we're going to have them in all 4 fabrics. When I used to make these to sell at the farmer's market, every year I would have to refigure out the right order to do things. So let's see how I do this year when I haven't actually made these. I think I stopped making these maybe a year ago. So you want to turn it twice, and you get pretty good at eyeballing. But if you're not comfortable with that, use some kind of measuring tool to check that. That's what this is for, so that you can get, you know, an accurate measure and make sure that you're being real consistent with what you're doing. I just eyeball it. I find that I can do that well enough to satisfy my customers. I believe we go this way. If you go the wrong direction with ironing in your hem, it's very easy to correct. And so it's not that big a deal. It's slightly better if you go the right way. Okay, so this is ready to sew. Okay, we're going to make a little piece that's going to become our little button loop. And we cut the end of the fabric into a point. And you just use a pin or a needle to come through the back. And you pull out a little bit. It works better upside down like this. And we're going to push down on it with the iron and kind of steam as we go, and once we get it through the other side, be careful not to burn yourself with your steam. We're just going to pull it through and out the other side. And then we're going to be able to fold this in half and stitch it with our edger foot and get a nice little loop for our napkins. So this is where that edger foot that I talked about before really comes in handy. I have a rule that whenever my hands are very near my needle, my foot comes off my pedal. And you'll see that I chained those, like I said, I just always leave everything attached as much as I can. I just find that it's a time saver. You know, it may not actually waste any thread because you end up needing to pull your thread out to get started anyway. So I've got these. The loops we want need to be right about 4 inches. None of this stuff is an exact science, but 4 inches works pretty well. So we're gonna, and I'll probably use the rest of this for loops for something else, but I'm just gonna put them aside. One direction your fabric doesn't stretch very much, and the other direction it does. One direction doesn't have a lot of give, and the other it does. And what I try to do is go with the direction. I need to move my needle over. I'm going to use the same edger foot. I like to start with the edge that doesn't have a lot of give, and I'm just going to back sew a little bit just to give it a nice little anchor. And I'm going to stitch. And I'm going to double check that I like my tension. Seems a little bit too loose on top. I'm going to adjust that. Before I get to the corner, and you don't want to get too close or this becomes harder to do, but you take this, it's got the 2 folds here, it's got the 2 folds there, and all you're going to do is turn it. You can see this is the raw edge. Turn it like that, flip it like that, and then kind of primp it, get it right where you want it. If you had needle down, which I don't, your needle would be in the fabric, which I've gotten pretty good at not tugging on that, but if you had your needle in your fabric, that would be helpful. And now we're going to go, and my machine is kind of a beast, and so I'm just going to walk it to right where it's 1 stitch past that corner, and then I'm going to keep stitching. This time I'll put my needle down. And I'm going to just make sure I think that's a nice looking stitch. I'm okay with that. Could be a tiny bit tightened up on top. So I'm going to keep going. And now I'm going to do the second corner. I like to put my loop in on my 3rd corner. That's just what I like to do. That corner. I don't know if you can see, but see what a nice corner that is? It's attached, it's going to wash well, it's a beautiful hem napkin. This is my 3rd corner, so this is the one. I'm going to get about that close so that this is just being held down by proximity to what's in the machine. And I'm going to go ahead and make my loops match in case they're not always feeling like they want to have. And I usually put them in like this with the stitching on this side, and I just fold it in half and just tuck it in there. This is a pretty forgiving thing. It's pretty easy to do, but you're gonna have to ride your edge up over the top of this. So go slow. And if you are more comfortable at first, just walk it through with your hand, and or put your machine on half speed. My other machine will do that. And then just go. Here we are back to where we, actually, that was where I test sewed earlier, and I took it out since I didn't want to have that extra stitch. Okay, so we're going to come up under this corner, get a little bit past that corner, one stitch past, and then we're going to back stitch a little, tie a good knot, and then here we are. We're not going to take it out yet because we don't want to have to hold those ends. All right. So I tried to get started and I immediately ran out of bobbin thread, but we're ready to go now. I filled up 6 of them, and so we can try to make up for lost time here. So I started out when I was Zazu's buttons, putting a good luck button on everything that I made. And it was a cute little gimmick, but it wasn't going to last forever. One of the things I do with the napkins is use different, even if all the napkins match, I like to use different buttons, because then people know which is theirs, and you know, they can have dessert using the same napkin they eat dinner with if they can recognize the button. These are pretty picked over, but hopefully I can find 8 acceptable buttons here. A lot of these are recycled. This friend that I'm making these for actually gave me her grandmother's buttons, and they were beautiful, and sometimes I wish I just kept them. I'm going to show you the best way to figure out where your button goes. And then with the button and the loop down, I do this to get a quick start. I've demonstrated this hundreds of times in my booth at shows and the farmer's market. I used to have a whole napkin display with different ways that you could fold your napkins. So I do this to get a quick start, and I roll it up, and at some point you just turn back these 3 corners into your roll. There are lots of ways to do it, and then you roll it up and you button it, and it looks like this. And it makes a pretty cute little thing. Now this is fairly tight. If I sew a button right there, it's going to be fairly tight. If you sewed it looser, you could make it so it would hold silverware. You know, you could probably easily hold a fork in here, but I don't think you could put a whole table setting in there. I need to get my daughter back to be my camera girl, because this is a lot more fun with her here. If I put a post-it note right here, with the napkins cut at 20 by 20 and hemmed thusly, I'll measure that and put on the screen what we've turned over here. I think it's about 5/8. I did a lot of garment sewing when I was in high school, and so 5/8 is sort of automatic go-to width for me. But anyway, a Post-it note puts this button pretty much right where it needs to go. And so what we're going to do is I've doubled up my thread so that it can go on faster. I'm going to start at the top because this is where the button will hide my knot, and I'm going to start sewing this. I'm going to come through it, and I'm going to make sure I don't take a tiny amount of fabric here. I want quite a bit. I want this back here actually to be pretty good size because that's what's going to hold this. And I will admit that after a lot of use and a lot of years, at the point where your napkin is, the fabric is getting worn and the fibers of the napkin are getting worn out, these buttons will eventually come off. But boy, I have people who bought their napkins from me in 2001, 2002, 2003 who still come back and buy gifts, and they still love their napkins. Now they are not using them for every day, I assume. Alright, so I have these pretty much finished, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the best way to fold them. I've used some pretty big buttons, and so this is stacked up pretty high. I do think it's nice if you can keep lint and threads, and if you have pets, pet hair, off of your work, and if you need to use a lint roller for that. But what you do is you fold this, and then you fold this, and as I said before, we've got our button down, and we're going to do this to get a quick start, and then it's a fairly tight roll. At any point, turn back these 3 points and roll them into the roll, and then it's just going to button up, and it's going to look like that. It's probably obvious to you that I didn't make a fortune selling these napkins. I think I checked my records recently on some of these items that I'm doing the tutorials on, and I believe that I sold about 1,400 napkins before I got tired of making them. But I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting these in a box. So this is how I used to sell them. And, you know, people usually bought matching ones, but sometimes people would think it was fun to do a mix and match. I always recommended a mix and match for newly marrieds if you're doing a wedding gift, because I think that that encourages them to use them for every day instead of saving them for company. We've used cloth napkins for most of our marriage, most of 25 years, and that's why I learned how to make napkins, actually. And then I gave them as gifts, and then I started selling them, and now I'm hoping other people will make them for themselves and for others. Thanks.